I'll just get everything started. So, hello everyone who's here. Thank you for joining. My name is Ilya. I'm the host of Waypoint Web3. It's been set up by United Gamers and Sanctor Capital as a safe space to talk about all things about Web3 gaming. I myself am one of the co-founders and partners at Sanctor Capital. We invest and support our early stage teams in the Web3 space, primarily focused on metaverse and gaming, which makes sense that we're hosting a space like this. Before we get started, I do have to say that nothing you hear here is financial legal advice. All of the opinions are my own, and you may hear names of companies and or assets that we have positions in, held positions in the past, or may hold positions in the future. In the interest of full disclosure, we have backed United Gamers. So yeah, let's just jump in to the topic we have today. Today we're talking about discovering games, something that's kind of an important and sometimes painful topic for both games and gamers trying to explore the Web3 space. We have some awesome speakers today, and this space is being recorded, so you will be able to kind of re-listen and share after the fact as well. But here are some awesome speakers, and I just kind of want to introduce them. Everybody, I'll call your name, and please introduce yourself and say a few words about yourself, how you got into the space, and kind of what you're doing in gaming. I'll just go right across my screen. First up is Carlos from Elixir.
Hello, hi to everybody. It's been a pleasure to be here in this space. I'm Carlos, founder at Elixir Games. We are building a distribution platform that is very well connected, forwarding the next generation of games. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Thanks for inviting me to this space here.
Awesome. Next up, Michael from Gamespace.
Hey, yeah, thanks for the intro and glad to be here. So I'm the CEO and co-founder of Gamespace, which is a gamify as a service SDK. So basically, we help Web2 gaming companies transition to Web3 through our SDK in about under 7 days. So kind of where this idea came from is myself and my co-founders, we looked at the Web3 gaming space and we just weren't happy with the quality of games. So we decided that the entry point for Web2 games to enter into Web3 is quite difficult, not only from a technical standpoint, but marketing, community, raising money, listing tokens, all of that. So we basically, hold the hands of Web2 companies to enter the Web3 space. So yeah, that's basically Gamespace. Glad to be here. Thanks.
Awesome, thank you. Next up, Chris from Mirror World.
Hey guys, thanks for having me, Ilya. So my name is Chris. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Mirrorworld. Mirrorworld is a mobile infrastructure project that essentially powers multiple casual games across the mobile space. Similar to, I guess, Gamespace, we provide our APIs and SDK so that developers can actually self-serve and start developing mobile applications regarding their crypto usage. And we want to make that experience really, really easy for all types of developers and smaller game studios across the world. And we started in this space because we started developing multiple casual games with one set of asset interoperability, and we realized that there are core issues within the mobile infrastructure that are not supported when it comes to crypto applications, including onboarding, activation, and revenue conversion. And we wanted to tackle those issues with our own technology. So that's been what we are working on, and so far there are a lot of people essentially building on top of our SDK stack, and that's what we do at Mirrorworld.
Awesome, thank you. Pedro from DappRaider.
Hello, Ilya. Thanks for having me. Good morning, evening, afternoon, everyone. So I'm Pedro. I'm currently the head of research at DappRaider. I joined the blockchain crypto space in early 2017, probably as much of us. And for those of you who don't know what Dub Radar is basically we are labeled as the world's Dab store powered by our Radar token. And actually, it's quite interesting for this topic because our journey is also about how our audience and people in general can discover not only games but decentralized applications in general. So on one hand, we are trying to educate through our data, through our content, and through our products, people entering their Web3 journeys, and then complementing this discovery space where our users and people coming from Web2 and Web3 in general can discover the application, the blockchain application that they want to interact with. So yeah, thanks.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Jeremy from Crypto Guild.
Yeah, thank you. I think I'm among the last because I have like 26 followers on Twitter. Pretty bad. So I'm the co-founder of Crypto Guilds. We are the LinkedIn of the metaverse. We basically connect guilds, games, and scholars. So on our platform, we have like thousands of scholarship opportunities, but right now we focus mostly on developing tools so guilds and games can connect, partner, grow their community, and fundraise.
Awesome. Edmund from Rainmaker. Edmund, can you speak? And we're suffering from a bit of technical difficulties on Edmund's side. Okay, Edmund, we'll come back to you when your microphone works. We also have a few. We have a few speakers that are also joining, just in the nick of time. Sirius from Playgrid, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi, Leah. Thank you for having me and for your invite. Sorry for the technical issues, but now it's okay. Do you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Hi everyone, I'm Sirius. I'm coming from Playgrid, and I'm the main crypto gamify researcher for Playgrid. And I actually entered crypto 12 years ago with some of the years where I was absent. And in blockchain gaming, I'm from since 2016. And Playgrid is the project that try to connect game studios with the gamers, and also we are developing some cool stuff which will have benefit and increase the adoption for the Web2 gamers coming to Web3.
Awesome, thank you. Edmund, let's do one more try.
Right. Hello.
There we go.
Oh, nice. Okay. So yeah, good day, everyone. I'm from Rainmaker Games. My name is Edmund, and I'm basically a writer for Rainmaker Games, but I'm more of on the community side. So yeah, Rainmaker Games is basically a Web3 gaming platform that aims to simplify and make Web3 gaming accessible to all gamers in the world. So aside from that, I'm pretty much like a really chill and casual gamer. So I'm very excited tonight, and thanks for having me.
Awesome. Okay, so thank you everybody for introducing yourselves. The way I want to run this is I'll just throw out some questions and topics. There's no set order. If you have something you want to say or a follow-up question you want to ask to one of the speakers, feel free to jump in. If we go quiet for too long, I will call on somebody, even if it makes somebody uncomfortable. So, but let's start with a nice and simple question. Right now, how do you see gamers discovering Web3 games? What is the process like now?
I can step in on this, kind of lay the foundation. So, I think adoption is a really important point in terms of bringing Web2 users to Web3. I'll focus on this point. I'm not sure if that's what you mean exactly by the question, but I'll just focus on the adoption of Web2 to Web3. So when we look at Web2 gamers, a lot of them are kind of tainted by the feeling of like pay to win, pay to play, that type of thing. And even now in Web3, we have like pay to earn and things like that. And I don't think that pay to earn is a long-term model. I think we're already starting to see how, there's almost seems to be a never-ending death spiral with all projects that are pay to earn, because it's almost impossible to keep tokenomics evolving throughout the life cycle of a game. So, maybe there's 1 year that's great, and then second year comes and it starts to fall more and more, and users start to lose confidence in the project, and this is kind of the death spiral that we've seen with a few big games. So I think to adopt more Web 2 users into Web 3, there's a lot of things that need to be done. There's like more simplified onboarding and on-ramping, so not throwing crypto in Web 2 users' face, but instead allowing them to connect with platforms that they're familiar with, such as like Steam integration, Auth0 APIs, to be able to integrate with like Twitter and Instagram. These types of things is a great way to sort of adopt Web 2 users in. And then also on the kind of marketing and event giveaways, I kind of have this theory that Web 2 users are not going to enter Web 3 through a purchase, but more so through some type of giveaway or an airdrop, which makes them much more likely to kind of enter into the industry, be able to try out the game with that NFT asset, and then think about purchasing later on. So we're not going to see instant revenue or conversion rates from Web 2 users as they kind of enter into to the Web 3 space. So yeah, hopefully that covers like a few different points, but that's my opinion on that.
Carlos, you can just jump in.
Yeah, ready to jump in. Yeah, so I was gonna say that I believe the Steam integration is not gonna work out. Absolutely not. Like I think crypto tech just bypass the market share that Steam just have on any single transaction on Steam. So that's actually what we're building. Well, some of our followers, they call it like the Steam of crypto. We don't want to call ourselves like Steam, but I think it's important for the onboarding of Web2 users, make things first secure and second accessible. And this is right now what we are focusing in Elixir, but it's tremendous, the big things. First of all, right now games, Web3 games, most of them you require to download a super unsafe and suspicious executable file from a boot transfer, and that's not gonna work. So what we are building right here is a security way to make that happen. And on the other side is onboarding Web2 gamers. In the current bear market or current transition market, is not such a big thing. I mean, every super cycle, it opens an opportunity window where Web3 games can attract many Web2 gamers. And the last one was a bit messed up because it was all around the earning component. And right now, under this current transition, what we have right now is huge games with fun first and quality approach being built and developed under the carpet. You can check it out like in our platform. We have like plenty of games that they are live already, and you can just download the client, use a launcher, and then download all the games, enjoy them, and only use them as one-stop position. So I think that's what makes the difference for more than Web2 games. Sorry, Web2 gamers into Web2 games. Use simplicity on onboarding and security of accessibility.
I think I'll jump on there. I think also that the difference between the Web 2 and Web 3 discoverability for gaming is a fundamental shift, which is in Web 2, you were mostly passive in your search for games. Whereas in Web 3, there is a new trend that you can be actively looking for games, right? Web 2, you have too many like recommendations, suggestions, advertisements, distribution platforms, or influencers that basically bombard you with new games all the time. So you don't really actively look for new games. The Web3 so adds new tools to be also a passive gamer in terms of discoverability with the airdrops and all these things. But it fundamentally changed things with the financialization. So now you are actually looking for games because you can earn or you can have financial incentives. So that's why it also brings kind of new layers of discoverability where you have gamers, scholars, investors, guilds, whatever, that are looking for games in a different way and that are onboarding games in a different way that is not only through gameplay and fun, but also through financial incentive. And I think this is a fundamental shift in the Web2 to Web3 discoverability.
Just adding on to that topic a little bit, I think it's really interesting that Jeremy just talked about essentially the different rows of players, different types of players looking or they're trying to discover more types of Web3 games during this kind of evolution into a more sustainable model. I think it's also interesting to think about as projects, right? As gaming projects, how do you want your players to discover your projects? Because that ultimately decides the ratio of different types of players within your community. For example, if token rewards, airdrops are the primary way of growth for your channels, then essentially you will get a lot of investors or essentially arbitrageurs within this process looking for financial incentives. And you want to cap that ratio if essentially you want a positive inflow of revenue into the game itself, whether it be through NFT minting or in-game consumption or even like in-game marketplace sales. So through that journey, I think what we've realized when we were developing multiple games was that you actually have to kind of intentionally cap the ratio of these different types of players, similar to a Web2 game where you are, I guess, like intentionally selling to a portion of your large revenue generating players and really serving them really well. I guess like in Web3, you also have to be careful with the discoverability with Web3 native methods when it comes to economic incentive layer, and then the rest is how do you calculate the ROI with traditional Web2 gaming discovery channels. I think a lot of projects are not doing that as well as Web2 games because it's hard to calculate that onboarding, activation, and revenue conversion flow. But once you are able to do that, whether through social login, as well as like an in-app marketplace, you can track all of that, conversion ratio. Then at that stage, really we can utilize more of existing, Web2 ad campaigns and channels as well for a channel of growth for our games. And I think there's not that clear of a line when it comes to, whether it's a Web2 game or a Web3 game. At the end of the day, players are really trying to engage with the content and really enjoy the gaming entertainment aspect of the game.
In my opinion, the blockchain gaming at the moment is in a kind of a hybrid version, and I think that the onboarding of more gamers and players could be a good showcase that the games, and actually some of the games they try to do this, will have some two parts in the game, which one will be the free to play Web2 version, where the Web2 gamers can come and play their way, and then they will have a different way where you will have introduce the NFTs and tokens and etc., or play to earn and stuff like that. So I think at the moment that's the best way to onboard more players, because even as a researchers, I don't know how the other speakers will agree with me, but even as a researchers now we have very big problem, because when you research a game and you want to try the content, you cannot, because you need to buy NFT or you need to buy a huge amount of tokens, which it's not very cheap. So I think this is the one thing as a showcase where the games can solve this problem with involving crypto, and Web2 gamers don't want NFTs or crypto and stuff like that. And I want to say that I'm also very focused on helping the community to understand that the blockchain games should be pure Web3. And at the moment we have a hybrid version where you have signing with emails and mixing with connecting with the access. So this is the difficult part where you have more complex and complex signing up or registering or trying to play the game. And this is the thing where the game studio should think and consider making the process simpler than what is at the moment.
I want to just jump real quick because in 5 minutes I have to hop off. And I want to say, just adding to what you say, I think games should not do infrastructure. It's very important. No Web2 games handles, or barely, just a very few minority handles authentication or the user's login or any of that. This is not happening in Web3, primarily because there was no Tuta launcher before that was offering such a service because because everything is just on the line for Steam or Epic Games. So the fact that now you have, I don't know, 100 playable games on Web3 that are worth it, and those 100 games require 100 login and passwords, 100 wallet connects, it's just not gonna work out. And that's a super big point of failure that Web3 is facing on onboarding. Not, I mean, the discovery part is all right. I say discovery of projects, discovery of playable games is way more challenging. That's also one of the things we're focusing on Elixir. But yeah, regarding to the onboarding process, it's super complicated once you have games building infrastructure, and any game do not speak to each other. So they're building their own infrastructure process. One of them do wallet connect, one of them do email, another one do email and wallet. Some of them are custodial, some of them non-custodial. It's just a mess. And that's why we also from our side, we're trying to, narrow the path, make it a standard that gamers, even traditional gamers, that they're willing to try Web3, they can connect their wallet once at the platform and then experience all the games just with their NFTs inside, no login, no history, no hassle, just plug and play. And I think that's where the key is for onboarding. Instead of building a huge game that has so much potential and yet follows the same procedures as any other game building infrastructure.
Go ahead, Pedro.
Yeah. Hello. Is it okay if I just chip in for a bit?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So I guess regarding discovery with Web3 games, I guess I think that's very true. Financializations to change very fundamental things about discovering games, especially in the Web3 space. And I think that focusing on the differences is while a good thing, but we at Rainmaker Games, we did like a sort of survey with gamers, regardless whether they were from Web 2, or whether they were from Web 3, and we found that there were a lot of things that were similar with Web 2 and Web 3. And I guess that's no surprise, since Web 2 gamers are pretty much gamers who came from Web 2. Things like their preferred type of content to consume where they're not gaming. They're mostly watching videos, and this is going to be mostly on platforms like YouTube or Twitch. And the way they distinct games is mostly the same. When you talk about play to earn games or blockchain game, there's quite a lot of distinctions, whether they're play to earn or play and earn. But for the gamer, whether they're from Web 2 or Web 3, it's interesting to find out that they still distinct them from genres like FPS or like a sort of RPG kind of style. So yeah, I think that's this fun thing to share with everyone here.
Yeah, for my part, I gotta say that I agree with most of what has been said so far, but I think we're analyzing from the onboarding perspective. And we all agree that there are different challenges, like the user friction that it's still with Web3 technologies, which is something that New World, for example, is with Chris here, is doing a great job. Then we also have a distribution problem, how these blockchain games are going to distribute their games to millions or probably even billions of players, right? But talking about discovery as itself, it's a whole different problem. And I think it was Jeremy who was speaking about identifying first your audiences. because how could you be able to show what games are available if you do not know what your audience wants? Because let's say in the crypto space we have speculators, right? People that are going only to play the game because of farming, because they heard they are earning money, so maybe they will only speculate on the assets. Then you have the real players, people that will spend time playing the game for fun. Then you have guilds, and then you have also maybe investors. That these are different type of audiences that you need to show the games. And this is something that at that Radar we're working on. We're trying to identify who are main audiences, who is trying to discover new games. And gotta say that the difference between discovering Web 2 and Web 3 is quite different. Imagine you're navigating through social media, any of your choice, and you're bombarded with a lot of advertisements from gaming studios that have millions of dollars to spend in advertisements. You will see Square Enix, you will see Bethesda games, and you will see other type of games. Whereas in Web3, projects are basically fighting to get money and they will not spend on advertising. So it's probably our job to help these games get to the right people to become sustainable and great projects going forward.
Pedro, I love that you mentioned this because while everybody's speaking, I think a lot of the comments made sense, but I just keep thinking back to kind of this anecdotal conversation I had with a former pro gamer who, like a lot of people, got into the space through Axie Infinity, and then when I started asking him about kind of other games, like Splinterlands, Gods Unchained, some of the like first generation staples, he had no idea about them, and this was somebody who was already in the space. I think we take for granted, a lot of times people say, we do research and then how do we kind of onboard and reduce churn? But I think we take for granted like the actual discoverability of games. There's kind of quite a bit, as you mentioned, advertising, and quite a bit of kind of, even in real life events that happen around, traditional gaming space to help gamers find their games. And I think that right now we're kind of in that nascent state, and that's missing in a lot of spaces, right? So even if you're in this space, it's kind of a challenge for you to kind of discover what's coming. I wanna kind of follow up on that and say, what tools and what instruments do you think we need to kind of help facilitate? Pedro, you said we need to kind of compensate a little bit for the lack of advertising dollars on the side of games. What tools could help facilitate that?
So I can speak for myself. So at the research unit at Upgrader, we are looking for KPIs and metrics that can help our audience understand what game suits better their strategy. So, for example, let's think of two games without saying names. One has a good farming ratio, right? That maybe you're earning $10 per day game per day of playing this game, and there is another game that maybe you are earning just $1 per day for playing that game. However, there is the entertainment factor. So you spend 2 or 3 hours playing this game and you're having real fun with your friends, having social interactions and so on. Whereas the other game, even though you're earning more money, you're probably just clicking one button to farm. So that is one place to start. And then the other one is understanding and trying to be as educated as possible, because we know that Web3 is enabling a lot of potential and use cases behind. So it's also probably our job to educate people into what potential will NFTs bring. Let's remember that the skins and wearables market worldwide, it's around 20 billion in revenue, where US teenagers in average in the US spend $50 to $75 per month in Fortnite only. And then you have what's happening in Roblox and these type of metaverse platforms where you see real value coming. So if you are able to educate properly these 3 billion traditional gamers, because there are 3 billion traditional gamers worldwide, you're able to educate them properly and show them the potential of implementing NFTs and crypto assets into gaming platforms, I think we could get to a point where, yes, we could start thinking in mass adoption and onboarding millions and millions of players. I think this is where we could start looking at.
There's just one thing I want to step in on. There's an interesting point that you made there regarding like a game that's fun to play and a game that you can earn in. And I think, in my personal opinion, this is kind of the problem with the Web3 gaming space at the moment, is that, if, and this doesn't obviously relate to every game in the space, but if you were to take a look at the average number of games that exist, they're more DeFi than they are gaming. And I think that this is a problem long term. If we're talking about creating a game for people to earn lots of money playing, I think it obviously needs to have a fairly good tokenomics, good sort of DeFi model. But if we're talking about just pure Web2 gamers coming over playing games that are fun, and the way that I always describe it is, what day in the future is gamified just going to become gaming, and will that ever happen? And for that to ever happen, we have to think about basically adopting the mass numbers from Web 2. And to do that, I don't think it's necessarily going to be done by games that make people a lot of money. It's going to be done by just having higher quality games in the space. And so that's really what we focus on at Gamespace is we help like AAA Web 2 gaming companies to transition to Web 3 and help them along the way with all their technical integrations, their marketing, and all that type of stuff. So we really want to increase the quality of games that exist in Web 3. But there's also another problem where the typical development period of a high level, high quality AAA Web 2 game is around 2 to 3 years to develop it from scratch. So, we're definitely in this for the long term. And what we're seeing now is a lot of, AAA Web 2 gaming companies, they're starting to kind of run games that they've run before on Web 2, and they're basically revamping them with, with tokenomics and NFTs. And so this is also not a great thing to do, but at least the quality of the games is better. The way I always say it is like a bad game in Web 2 is an awesome game in Web 3. And so I think as long as more Web 2 gaming companies are starting to enter into the Web 3 space and using tools that lets them get there quickly, kind of like ours and Mirror World, and I'm sure a few other people here as well that operate companies that are more infrastructure layer and help those companies to upgrade. I think that's how we make this space more focused on gaming and less focused on DeFi.
Yeah, I very much agree with you on what you said at the very beginning, especially when you mentioned that we're going to use the same tools basically to onboard people in Web3 games. We're going to use the same tool as in Web2. To onboard billions of people, you need to do advertisements, you need to do it on the good platform, you need to have influencers and make good games and do gameplay. And I don't think discoverability is going to change so much for fun players, random players. Imagine asking a random player to spend 100 or 10 hours, maybe let's say 10 hours to look for 100 games to only play one. Who's going to do that? Nobody's going to do that, or it's very niche. The only way you would do it for us, it's our thesis at Crypto Guilds, it's because it's basically an earning potential, almost a job. So yes, if you think about it that way, you may spend 10 hours researching 100 games to play only one. But if you're not that very specific person, it's impossible. Like you're not gonna do that. It's not a normal like user behavior. Nobody's gonna spend that time doing that. So like large onboarding is going to be done via Web 2 tools. And then the next layer that will come, it already is here for kind of investors, guilds, speculators. This is already important, but it will be even more important after we already onboard these people from Web 2 to Web 3.
Just wanted to jump in here because theoretically, I think onboarding a large group of Web2 user is what we are really looking into. Just looking at the total pool of gamers within the Web3 space, is really just around 1.5 to 2 million daily active users on a daily basis, and that is a tiny pool when it comes to gaming user comparison across the board. But what we really think about and often discuss about is essentially we think that Web2 traditional discovery channels are very valuable to Web3 games. However, because of the policy issues as well as existing regulations surrounding iOS policies, App Store, as well as Google Play, if you successfully onboard your user through a growth channel that is similar to, let's say, AdMob or Google's ad platform, and your user actually end up downloading your application, by default, these platforms actually have a restriction on crypto transactions when it comes to NFT sales, in-game assets, and stuff like that. So we really think about it as a all-in-one flow, where onboarding itself is not necessarily enough to really help games succeed, especially Web3 games succeed when it comes to user growth. Even if you do adopt these traditional channels, I think one issue that a lot of games have not thought through is essentially, once you acquire users, how do you actually be compliant to these existing distribution channels while using their growth channel, but at the same time also generating in-app purchases. And I think StepN is actually a pretty good example of that, where they were able to develop the infrastructure layer themselves through, I guess, a merge of two different teams, one blockchain and one gaming team. And then they were able to roll out their own in-app marketplace. But if you look at their application recently, they actually took out their in-app market purchase and then switch it up with a browser window. So that's essentially their way of thinking about a iOS compliant way of actually executing revenue generating transactions by the users directly within the mobile stack. And I think before that user experience is standardized across every single application, there will be a lot of friction for users to complete that conversion. And for any game that is not a huge MMO, for example, if you look at how gaming companies are really thinking about revenue generation, they are calculating the click-through rate, CPI, CTR, cost per acquisition, all of those stats very, very carefully, because 1% of that could realistically mean millions of dollars for a gaming company. For example, Voodoo, which publishes casual games, hyper casual games on the scale of hundreds per year, all they really make money on is essentially the difference between their customer acquisition costs and the ad revenue within the application. So without these stats and without actually being able to track the cost of discoverability when you use different growth channels, I think will be that will be a long way to go for Web3 games to really be sustainable, at the same time also achieve scale.
I think one of the things that gets mentioned a lot is Web2 gamer and Web3 gamer, and we kind of use them side by side as kind of two different type of gamers. Now, ideally, a game is a game and a gamer is a gamer, but we do have this differentiation right now. So what is the difference? Where's the line drawn? What makes a Web2 gamer a Web2 gamer, and what makes a Web3 gamer a Web3 gamer? And kind of how do we bridge that gap?
Maybe I can jump in here real quick. So I think about this problem a little bit differently. So from my perspective, a Web3 gamer is a gamer with an existing wallet, and Web2 gamer is a gamer without any exposure or any knowledge of crypto wallets, or at least he doesn't have a transaction identity. So for example, after StepN essentially grew their audience, they saw that 70% of the swap requirements actually came from their own native token, and then they turned a dual art exchange right into their application. So they made a swap or a DEX right into their consumer facing application. And that's where they're making a lot of their revenue. And that's also where they're turning a lot of their application user to a transaction user, where they are learning how to exchange, how to swap, and they became a a deeper crypto user, I would say. And I think that stays true for a lot of the differentiation between Web2 and Web3, because if you think about a Web2 user, there's no way they can transact even if they play in your game without an existing wallet. Whether it be through, I guess, education on NFT directly within the application, or through education on swapping features and dexes directly through the application, there's some way that games have to adopt to really educate these users that are onboarded to become someone who can actually utilize a transfer, or deposit, or withdrawal, or even a purchase with their Web3 wallet. And that's fundamentally how I think about the onboarding process as well, where how do we as games, as infrastructure, how do we offer best practices to successfully educate and onboard Web2 users so that they are able to transact with complete a blockchain transaction with either custodial wallet that games have within the application, or non-custodial wallets that games lead them to download. But that flow has to be as easy as possible and as frictionless as possible, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's probably a perfect answer, right, Chris?
We have a lot of polite speakers who just like passed around the mic until everybody got quiet. So who wants it?
Yeah, I can continue. In my opinion, what we need to do in this space, actually the game studios need to do, is first of all, for me, is very wrong that they, before launching the game, they throw to the community tokens, NFTs, and etc. etc. And I have a feeling that the game studios want to benefit from this because they have royalties, they have from the sales of NFTs, etc. etc. Now, why is this is important? Because you cannot onboard any players if they are not early. Because when you have secondary market of the NFTs, and the NFT is required to play a game, and the price go up and up and up, nobody will come and play that game. So the game studios should, in my opinion, should first launch the game, or make a public test of the game, so everybody can play the game, get the experience of the game, and then they can introduce the NFTs and tokens, etc. etc. Because many games now, I see, for example, they have staking, they have tokens, they have but the game that's coming 2023, 2024, which is very wrong, and nobody will come from the traditional gaming to Web3 gaming if this is the case. The other thing is that the blockchain gaming space should come together, make conferences or talks or etc., and find the best user experience way to onboard players. So, for example, cut the steps of onboarding. For example, like now we need email, we need 0x address, we need etc. etc. A few days ago, I wanted to try one game where they announced the beta version. I think I needed to go to the Epic Games, create my account, then download the software, then launch to the Web3 publisher, and that's and I give up. I'm a very advanced user of Web3 and blockchains and crypto. When I give up, what the person who is playing traditional games will do? So the blockchain gaming space need to come together and we have a very good organization about that, where everybody are like members of that organization. So the gaming studios and all projects in blockchain gaming can find a way where the best possible way, so the traditional gamers can be onboarded. So like, and I want to make a comment about Stepan. I don't agree with Stepan and making so this centralized platform or a app where you can't move outside of the app. That's wrong, because this space, first of all, was invented to empower people, not to make them, dependent on any app or stuff like that. And that's a wrong way. We reverse the process. We need to go forward, not backward.
We're coming up to the top of the hour. I want to ask kind of one or two more questions before closing this up. We mentioned kind of onboarding Web2 gamers. Right now, a lot of kind of Web3 games find that as soon, especially this, a lot of this is true for like a Web2 game that tries to enter the Web3 space. As soon as they announce, that they're doing something with NFTs or they're doing something with blockchain, they get massive pushback from their community, and they either have to retract or deal with a lot of users churning away. What, in your opinion, are they doing wrong, and how do you present games to the traditional gaming audience such that there isn't this massive pushback?
I think I answered that question already. with introducing first the NFTs and tokens, and then the game, which should be opposite way. First need to come the game, and then the everything which is related to crypto. And I think crypto part should be separated from the game, because anyway the game is Web2. If it's on-chain game, yes, fine. That's different story. But then the on-chain games are coming soon, and that will be because this part of this way of game
Hello.
of blockchain
So I
gaming.
think part of the pushback is that with Web3, since it's drastically different from Web2, with being its financial aspects. I think often certain organizations forget that at their essence that these individuals are gamers, not primarily investors. I think we've seen this happen in the Web2 space before. Once they treat their communities and the people buying their games as not essentially gamers, treating them as you know something a bit more on the monetary side, we see this sort of pushback. So yeah, with everything going on in the markets, we've seen that GameFi has held its own, I guess, compared to DeFi. So we've seen that GameFi has this sort of edge, since primarily gamers are, mostly gamers, they're not essentially investors. So I think that's something that we should have in our mindsets going forward. Yeah.
It's also about education, and you, Ilya, mentioned backlash from traditional gaming communities. I guess you were talking about Ubisoft's Ghost Recon last October, when they announced they were implementing NFTs in the game, and their community was mad about it. And I think it's because they don't truly understand what NFTs are about. Probably they just saw NFTs and saw pictures of Bored Apes and CryptoPunks being sold for millions, and why? This is simple JPEGs. They truly don't understand the potential of ownership and entitlement that this technology drives in, right? So I think that's step one. Step two is also, again, backing up the point I previously discussed, is understanding the needs of your audiences. And point number three would be definitely that it's not only for games, but blockchain applications in general, reducing the friction that we see currently in the space. It's not easy for people to create a MetaMask account, understand what a blockchain transaction is, how can I interact in a secure way with my applications, what is a seed phrase, starting at that point. And then if you go to games, it could be even more complex. Because imagine you're playing a mobile game. So you're playing in one app, then you need to pop up, open another application, which probably it's a wallet connect, and then go to a third application to probably approve the transactions or something else, right? So the friction is still quite high. So projects that are working on reducing that friction will definitely help on this onboarding process. And then education will do its magic, and then the discovery platforms like us, like DappRadar, our objective is also to help make this bridge between users and projects, and make that happen. So yeah, that is how I see we could get the challenge of onboarding millions of players into games.
Yeah, there was one point you mentioned there about having to have 3 different applications to like purchase and play your assets within the game. So, I mean, this is really what we focus on with our SDK is like we have an embedded SDK and also a platform SDK, and basically they're 2 different models. But the embedded one, we can embed the NFT marketplace directly in the game. We can embed a token wallet directly in the game. And also with the login and onboarding, we can allow users to sign up with like very simple logins, such as like Gmail or Twitter. So what we're trying to do is have it so that a user doesn't need to download a game, buy the NFT on OpenSea, transfer it from their OpenSea wallet to the game application, spend more money on gas than the NFT is actually worth, and then finally be able to play the game and realize that the game isn't fun and doesn't make him money. So I think this is the over convoluted kind of, let's call it 2.5, Web 2.5 that we're currently in and getting out of. But I think infrastructure companies that focus on tools, as I emphasized this earlier, and I'll emphasize it again. These types of companies are the companies that are super crucial to making this space actually Web3, meaning much easier adoption, and focusing on the points that matter, and creating a better user experience. I think currently up in Web2, it's been very overcomplicated for even Web3 users, let alone Web2 users coming in and not understanding how to navigate around.
I think we're like as I mentioned, we're coming up to the top of the hour. I like to ask one question at the end, pretty much with every spaces. What is it that you're excited about for the coming few months? Or you can take it a longer window, but basically, what are you looking forward towards? And yeah, I'd like every one of the speakers to just kind of say one thing if you can.
I will go first because I also need to jump out. But the thing that probably excites me the most talking about Web3 games is how we are going to probably spend most of our times immersed in a virtual parallel reality that we call the metaverse, that is composed by hundreds and thousands of games applications, elements, names, etc. And how we overlap our social and human aspect into that new reality is what excites me the most. Seeing MMORPG games like Big Time, The Sandbox, Embersword, Mirandus doing that is really truly fascinating to see. However, a big disclaimer is we need to be very patient because we know that games are not developed from 1 month to another, nor even a year to another. They will take time. But once they are fully live, yeah, I can imagine we will have a lot of fun inside those virtual worlds. And yeah, for me, that's that part.
Anybody else? Any remaining excitement?
I mean, I mentioned this before, but like obviously, considering what we do, I'm just excited for more high quality games. I am a pretty hardcore gamer, or at least I was at one point in my life, and so I know what a good game is. I don't enjoy Web3 games currently, and so I'm looking forward and happy to be a part of a company that's leading this forward. But basically, to have really great games and work with really great gaming partners in the space, to basically just make this the gaming experience a little bit more fun in Web3. And I think a very important point of that is that gaming companies are not professional at blockchain, and blockchain companies are not professional at gaming. And I think this is the problem that we currently see. We need to let gaming studios do what they're good at, and let infrastructure and blockchain companies deal with what they're good at. And if we do that, we'll see a lot less hacks. Well, hopefully we will see a lot less hacks. But if everyone just focuses on what they're good at, I think we're moving towards definitely a better Web3 environment. So yeah, to kind of summarize, good games, good security. Let's go.
Yeah, I think I have to agree with that, but I think I'm also excited with what we're doing in the community side of Maker Games. We're currently reaching out with gamers from the ground level. So we've had events in our Discord server. If you guys want to join in, the Gamers Forum, it's bi-weekly and it's on 9 p.m. EST. Yeah, aside from that, from what I mentioned before, we're also interviewing gamers, whether they're from Web2 or Web3, asking what kind of games they're looking for, what are their preferences on games, and how they discover games. So yeah, I think we're really excited into learning more about the gamer, not just on the Web3.
I'm the most excited about the subnets, which are powered by Avalanche, which this technology will make easier for blockchain gaming to develop and incorporate the crypto part in the games. So, and I want to say that I agree with Gamespace about the gaming studio to do and work on the games, and the blockchain people or crypto experts to do their part.
Awesome. Well, I think that wraps it up. Thank you everybody for joining the space. Speakers, thank you for sharing your thoughts. And as I mentioned, this is a weekly Twitter Spaces. So everybody, tune back in next week for another session of all things Web3 gaming. Thank you everybody, and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks. Cheers.
Thank you. Cheers. See you next week.